Yeah, I'm a little bit worried, but I'm a little bit worried about war with Iran. I'm a little bit worried about neocon hawks leading us over the edge of the cliff as much as I'm worried about the rise of China or the fact that the Russian sphere of influence might preclude Ukraine joining NATO. Has it been for so long that you both have forgotten the Cold War? Trump very clearly wants to break down the post-Cold War global order of the past 30 years, and I sense that both of you, or at least Glenn, are sympathetic to that. It also seems very clear that Trump has a worldview based on great power competition and spheres of influence, and he seems willing, if not eager, to step aside and allow Russia and China to rise as global powers by backing away from our long-term allies in Europe and Asia. It seems like a return to the global order that we left behind in 1989 when we rightly celebrated its demise. Glenn sometimes talks about his concerns of nuclear war, but if we return to another Cold War with three great powers seeking territorial expansion, that seems like it will eventually raise, not lower, the risk of nuclear exchange. Are either of you even a little bit worried? Well, let me go first, John, since I elected to put this question before us, and I didn't get your permission. I mean, the Cold War is over, but the world is not a unipolar world. The world is a multipolar world, and I think that needs to be accommodated and accepted as opposed to fought against and railed against. I think the rise of China is a geopolitical fact. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for the world. I certainly think it's not a bad thing for those people in China who are being brought within the modern world because of the successful transformation of a country of 1.5 billion people. So I don't fear the onset of a new world order. I do have some sympathy for Trump's desire to unburden America of the responsibility of being the world's policeman. It's costly. I mean, I don't know how you read Iraq and Afghanistan as not you, John, you, Michael, read Iraq and Afghanistan as military ventures. I read them as disastrous in terms of lost treasure and the accomplishment of the stated goals. I fear war with Iran, frankly, as a catastrophic venture, both for the global economy and in the spirit of Iraq and Afghanistan for the U.S. taxpayer, military, and so forth. I understand it's complicated. The nuclear proliferation problem, the confrontation with Israel that Iran insists on pursuing, and our large interest in cultivating commodious relations with the Sunni Arab Gulf states and Saudi Arabia and so on, and who are arrayed against Iran. And it's complicated. And I have to confess that I'm not an expert in this area, but slow to go to the ramparts, slow to the barricades, slow to mobilization, slow to conflict, which can get out of hand. And yes, I think I agree with your colleague, John, at Columbia, Jeffrey Sachs, the economist, when he says the main foreign policy imperative for the president is to avoid nuclear war because of the catastrophic consequences should it happen, and the very real prospect that big power confrontation can get out of hand. We definitely don't want nuclear war. That is a terrible thing. Now, I was trained in game theory as an economist, and I get the idea that just because an outcome is bad doesn't mean you need to conduct yourself so as to make the probability of that outcome zero. Because other bad things are also bad, and they may happen with greater frequency to the extent that you avoid, so for example, the Russians in Ukraine, how do you deal with the confrontation that is ongoing there? If you were to conduct yourself with the principal objective of minimizing the chance of nuclear war, you basically step aside and let them do what they wanted to do. We're already well advanced in Ukraine by now, and that's a whole nother subject that wasn't raised in the question. And Trump promises to end that conflict one way or another, and I'm for that. And I'm partly for that because I don't want nuclear war. On the other hand, I wouldn't have counseled non-involvement in reaction to the Russian aggression there because it raises the probability of nuclear war, which it certainly does do. But that would have been the wrong way of reacting. Still, one wants to bear in mind things can get out of hand, and that can be a problem. Either you're a little bit worried. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried, but I'm a little bit worried about war with Iran. I'm a little bit worried about neocon hawks leading us over the edge of the cliff, as much as I'm worried about the rise of China or the fact that the Russian empire, the Russian sphere of influence might preclude Ukraine joining NATO.
I don't have much to add, Glenn, except that however we feel about a new and possibly more dangerous Cold War, what I'm more afraid of is who we have in power. And I'm counting it down. We've got 3 years, 11 months, and 2 weeks to go of this. But frankly, Trump is driven by exactly two things. One, whether the leader likes him and admires him. And two, getting back at countries that he feels are not taking the knee to the United States and or not paying their way.
Not carrying their own weight, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Those are the two things. There are no other things. Those are the only two. It's interesting with Trump. To me, he's like the way we solve problems in linguistics, and you try to see what very few things end up creating a big mess of other things. Or it's kind of like how one gene on the chromosome can do all sorts of things, not just one thing. With Trump, it all comes down to those two things. So Putin, he admires Putin because Putin is a strong kind of man and has been nice to him for the most part. And then with China, he wants to get China back. And so he wants to do the tariffs. That's literally all he knows. So Glenn is talking about all of these things. And the person who is leading this country and in a way the world is as short-sighted as that. That scares me more than something as abstract as, are we entering another Cold War? I can't wait until the person who's president would be in a position to address a question such as yours.
All right. We're stuck with him for at least 4 years, John.
3 years, 11 months, and 2 weeks more.